To anyone who thinks that fantasy football analysis and projections don't have anything to do with football card flipping and investing, then I've only got one thing to say to you.
Come on, man. I mean, come on, man.
In this video, we're going to be covering excellent topics such as what the hell am I talking about, exactly where fantasy football analysis and projections overlap with football card investing and flipping, thoughts on the future of the sports card market as it's evolving right before our very eyes. Make sure you watch to the end of this video because there's aspects of fantasy football that do not carry over. This is going to ultimately lead to smarter football card investment and flipping decisions. So let's dig in. So the evolution of the sports card market is happening right before our eyes, and the sports card market is growing legs. A large part of this has to do with these new platforms like comc.com and StarStock and StockX that allow us to electronically buy a card and immediately flip it. Keep in mind, I don't have all the answers, but I have been fully immersed in this sports card world, doing tons of research, and with the technology at our fingertips, there's so much information I can find online through PWCC Marketplace, Market Price Research, and COMC to look at sales history and sales trends and really pinpoint the supply and demand has ebbed and flowed over the last couple years. So like Lamar Jackson, for example, once he beat the Patriots in last November, his rookie card price really started to take off. When we look at what fantasy football is driven by, it's driven by on-field performance. It's driven by yardage and touchdown. Going all the way back to when I started playing fantasy football in 2010 and looking at each year who was the MVP winner. And most of the years, the MVP winner was also the #1 fantasy point scorer for the year. So just to give you guys some insight, if you don't understand, the MVP decision in the NFL is made by a panel of 50 judges. Essentially, these judges are made up of NFL commentators, retired coaches, players, long tenured sports journalists, and the cornerbacks garner more attention and respect than any other player in the NFL because they touch the ball the most. And because the NFL has become more passer friendly and the NFL rules are set up to favor QBs, defenses have to play softer, we have more textbook tackles, and ultimately concussions are not good for the sport. When it comes to football card investing and flipping, we have to take in all other factors, not just on the field performance, but off the field performance as well. So things like social media following, personality, is their wife or girlfriend famous, likability. We also have to take into consideration their team win odds. So we look at Vegas and say, what are their team expected to win this year? Are they expected to go to the playoffs? Are they a favorite to go to the Super Bowl? Comparing that with their rookie card prices and the set and the year and the price and the condition of their rookie card, and understanding if all those things make sense into a good investment or flip. So right now, going into the 2020 season, understanding that quarterbacks garner most of the attention for the reasons that I've outlined. So we're looking for highly mobile, highly accurate quarterbacks that are going to be given the opportunity, and that's going to lead to more touchdowns, which is a higher fantasy performance, but it's also a higher performance on the field that's going to lead to more news coverage, more hype in the mainstream media. It's going to lead to them winning more games, getting to the playoffs, and ultimately getting an MVP selection or going to the Super Bowl and possibly getting the Super Bowl MVP or championship there to really see that huge increase in the rookie card. What other niche within the professional football organization outside of the coaching staffs have a almost obsessed, like fanatical approach to determining a player's opportunity that year? That's fantasy football. If you guys haven't seen, there's leagues out there that if you lose, you're going to get a My Little Pony tattoo on your ass or your thigh. So they're constantly trying to figure out the opportunity projection of a player. So there comes in advanced analytics. So that right there told me that I can use portions of fantasy football data and projections. What's their protection rate, supporting cast efficiency, true completion percentage, what's their deep ball completion percentage. Another prime example is a guy like Jalen Hurts and his official rookie card in his professional uniform is not out yet, but he's drafted to the Eagles. He's the backup to Carson Wentz. He's a highly mobile quarterback, a brand new rookie. But let's say if Carson Wentz gets hurt, and he's gotten hurt every year pretty much since he's been into the league. Well, if Carson Wentz goes down, you now have Jalen Hurts coming onto the field as a player that could emerge as the next Lamar Jackson or Patrick Mahomes behind a top-ranked Eagles offensive line. You have the Eagles with a huge fan base. You have a quarterback-friendly coach in Doug Peterson, so the opportunity's there. And I relate that to a biotech stock that's developing a drug to fight cancer, and they're in the trials phase right now. It's a penny stock, but they're having successful trials. They have good core metrics like Jalen Hurts athletic metrics. All they need is to get FDA approval. All Jalen Hurts needs is to become the starter, and now all of a sudden they're thrust into the limelight, and next thing you know, their rookie cards go through the roof. It's important to remember that fantasy football cheat sheets and fantasy football rankings are just that. They're intended to help people win fantasy football leagues. They're not intended to help people make smarter football card investments. So we have to take that into consideration, because in most fantasy football leagues, we're drafting running backs and wide receivers first, because we have to fill our fantasy rosters with 2 to 3 of them on any given week versus only having one quarterback in our starting roster on any given week. I envision a future where running backs, wide receivers, tight ends that are trading at a very low value and their cards aren't traded a whole lot, well, as more people get into the space like myself that are fantasy football fanatics, as more hype is generated throughout the season around these on-the-field performances, we're going to see more trading going on, therefore increasing the demand for these cards, and it's going to drive their prices up. Even all of the analysts and commentators on TV now play fantasy football, so anytime you see news around a player's on-field performance and you see their highlight of that player, it's how many fantasy points do they score in that game. And those are the kinds of things that I'm looking at and analyzing going into the season. Peace.